I'm just gonna get this out of the way right here at the start. I'm talking about edgy like this, and not edgy like the whole being insensitive kind of thing. Just thought I should go ahead and make that clear. There's this concept in storytelling that I think maybe comes from tabletop games originally, called the rule of cool. Put some cool shit up on the screens yet. Hell yeah. This idea is basically that an audience's willingness to suspend their disbelief increases the cooler something is. The sicker the shit, the less you'll sweat the details. Over the years, it's kind of morphed into the idea that cool stuff is worth doing for its own sake, and it doesn't really need extensive narrative justification. And you know what? I fuck with that. Writer brain people like me are too quick to dismiss the value of other disciplines when they make trade-offs in writing quality, but really it's just the inverse of what writers ask for from everyone else when they lead a project. The easiest cultural examples to point to for this are probably the works of Hiroyuki Imaishi. Stuff like Dead Leaves, Gurren Lagann, Panty and Stocking, and Kill la Kill are all tightly written shows for real, but they also trade some traditional writing value junk for some absolutely absurdly cool shit. I'm into allowing creators to indulge themselves this way because I find it allows their art to be more personal and expressive. Asking a generational animation talent to constrain his animation to some writer's plot is just always going to be more lame than letting that guy cook. All that being said, maybe because this is seen as anti-intellectual, or maybe due to some other cultural influences, I think it's pretty sad that this kind of logic only gets applied to cool stuff. And when I say cool in this context, I mean shit like Gurren Lagann. Your traditionally masculine, Chad boy, explosion-filled stuff. While I love that stuff dearly, that was never the kind of guy I was. You see, I like that edgy shit. Katanas, Faustian bargains, brooding boys with swooshy hair, anti-heroes. I'm sure you see the vision. Berserk. Sasuke Uchiha. Shadow the Hedgehog. Unfortunately, as a fan of that stuff, it hasn't ever seen the kind of mass cultural reappraisal dumb, fun, cool stuff has. Even now, when there are a few people slowly coming back around on this stuff as a sort of nostalgia for the mid to late 2000s hits, feels like it's couched in some kind of irony that's really not the same feeling I have for this stuff. See, I finished my reread of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1 recently and thought I definitely wanted to write about it, since it's one of my favorite things ever. In my writing process, I generally put on videos about the subject in the background just to see if I missed anything and to keep myself focused while I write. I noticed a trend in videos about the manga, and it was that they consistently tried to define edgy as something inherently lacking substance, and that their impression of Tokyo Ghoul from the outset was that it was edgy. But then they found out after reading it that it had substance, so it definitely wasn't edgy. This is baffling to me. Of course it's fucking edgy. Look at this shit. Like, seriously. And like, it's harder to convey with just pictures, but of course Tokyo Ghoul has substance too. In fact, I would claim that it doesn't just happen to have substance and happen to be edgy, but it straight up has substance because it is edgy. The edge is the substance. Let me break down why. To talk about this, I'm going to have to get into spoilers for the first half or so of the original manga, but I will be keeping them to a minimum, and the specific scene I'm talking about is probably the one thing you've seen from Tokyo Ghoul already. But still, you know, be advised, Tokyo Ghoul is absolutely worth reading, even if you thought the anime was bad. The first time I can actually remember thinking, oh my god, this shit is amazing, while reading Tokyo Ghoul was the end of chapter 63. A dozen or so chapters earlier, our protagonist, half-ghoul Ken Kaneki, is kidnapped by a group of ghouls. People who are super strong and eat people to survive, and after trying to escape from them, one of them begins torturing him. Since ghouls are superhuman, normal torture isn't very effective on them. They're so durable that their skin can bend knives. So how does our torturer get around Kaneki's durability? Oh, you know, by very graphically injecting a suppressant directly into his eye, of course. While this does negate his durability, it doesn't negate one of his other ghoul abilities, regeneration. Which means the torturer can literally dismember Kaneki over and over again for as long as he wants. Specifically, he seems to like plucking his fingers and toes off with pliers. Yikes. This, among the other horrible things Jason does to Kaneki, inevitably inspires some introspection within our protagonist. Thoughts drift to his date gone wrong that turned him from a normal human into a monster, then to the mother he failed to save as she was murdered in front of her child, and then finally to his own mother, who worked herself to death and left him alone at such a young age. After all this thought, and the days of a literal centipede writhing around inside of his brain, he finally snaps and realizes, I am a ghoul. The sheer catharsis of this moment is really top shelf. Using such over-the-top torture to give your protagonist a power-up is inherently pretty juvenile and insanely edgy. It's legit the time prison thing from Tails Gets Trolled. But like, holy fuck, man, I cannot imagine another way to have built to that payoff. And it doesn't stop there. When Kaneki finally breaks free, he has to fight his torturer. In one exchange, Kaneki's leg gets grabbed and he contorts around it, breaking it to land a kick on his enemy. He then drops the line,
"You think after everything else this would hurt?"
When I say I clapped, you should know that is a profound understatement. I was hollering reading this. Kaneki cannibalizing part of his torture is given weight because we know the mental state that finally led him to embracing his nature as a ghoul. Him breaking his leg to kick the guy is powerful because it makes the damage to his character visible in a way the audience hadn't considered. It makes the torture real. Edgy stuff is meaningful inherently in the same way cool and beautiful stuff are. Wrapping it into a proper narrative can serve to elevate it further, as we see all over Tokyo Ghoul's touching narrative about living with loss. But the aesthetics of edginess are inherently narrative in nature, just like any other aesthetic. Edginess is incredibly culturally pervasive despite the general critical balk at it, because it resonates with an aspect of being human like any other art does. A lot of the time, when the edginess gets heavy, like this torture sequence, people write it off as misery porn. And like, what is that double standard? When you're watching K-On! Or something, is that happiness porn? Is it a problem for someone to revel in negative emotions like this the way we all revel in happier ones when given the chance? Don't you listen to sad music when you're down to feel some catharsis? Can't the way art connects you with this side of yourself help you understand it better and even be therapeutic? And like, if that makes you cringe, I don't understand you. Have you never wanted to seem badass and thoughtful and wise from the suffering you've lived? Do you not pop off for the sheath katana into enemy falls apart combo? Do you not see how the edge is the gateway to experiencing a whole broad swath of human emotion? I don't know, man. I think Shadow the Hedgehog is pretty cool.